Okay, so this is the second lesson video, or the second video for the lessons for 4-7. The first one, we kind of went overview over everything and kind of made all these little pieces things here. So this is the first problem here. We're going to look at this first example, and we're going to take a look at this in the calculator. I purchased my own little calculator, so now I don't have to deal with the Chromebooks. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start by graphing this, and we're just going to go ahead and follow those steps right in the graphing piece. So it says to hit that y equals button, and then go ahead and type your equation into that y1 there. So you can see I've got like 9 different blanks. I could graph like 9 or plus different equations all on the same grid. You're never going to deal with more than 1 or 2 at the same time. So 1/2 x, remember that your fractions should be in parentheses. 1/2 x, and then your b value minus 4. So plug that into y1, and then go ahead and hit the graph button. So right there you can see it's graphing my line. It has a positive slope and a negative y-intercept, all things that match my equation. So you can use this tool to kind of check yourself when you're graphing your own lines. Like I said, one of the really coolest things, you can like obviously zoom in and out with the zoom button. If I scroll down to zoom out, you have to then hit enter to make the zoom out happen. So you can see it expanded it. My hash marks got way smaller, which means there's more intervals or more numbers going on there. If your graph is ever looking weird and not normal, you can always use that zoom standard or zoom choice 6. And that will take you back to the normal 10 by 10 grid like we talked about before. The other piece, and like this, like I said, this is going to be the most helpful piece, is that table of values. So to get the table, you're still plugging the equation into y equals like we did. But this time, instead of hitting graph, you're going to hit second and then graph to get to that table. So you can see here, these table values give me my points, my x comma y. 0 comma negative 4 is a point on that graph. And that makes sense because that's my y-intercept. I can also use this table to find my x-intercept. My x-intercept here would be 8. Let's just make a note of that. X-intercept is equal to 8. So here in this table function, this is where you can kind of, if you look at above window, how it says table set, TBL set, so second and window to get to that table set. This is that setup piece that I was talking about, where you can start it at 100 if you wanted to. So then you don't have to scroll all the way back up. And then obviously I'm not going to scroll all the way back up to 1. I'm just going to start it back at 0. And that's how you use the table. The last little piece here that I want to talk about is using the calculator to calculate x-intercepts. So that's these directions over here. So pulling this up, I actually should make a note in here that you need to follow the steps to graph first. That's not how you spell follow. Follow graphing steps first. So we've got that in y equals, and we've graphed. So now, after we've got it graphed, we want to hit the second button and trace, because that gets me the option of calculate, C-A-L-C, or calculate. And here in this menu, these are all the different things that you can calculate. So you can calculate a specific value, you can calculate zeros, you can calculate the maximum or the minimum. When we get into our next couple of units, we can use it to calculate the intersection point between two things. And choice 6 and 7 are derivatives and integrals, which aren't something you're going to get into until you get to calc. So when we're looking for x-intercepts, that is choice 2 for zeros. Zeros are x-intercepts. So you can see that once I hit enter, Mr. Blinky showed up. So I'm going to make a note over here. Back to our pieces here. When you're doing this left bound and right bound stuff, you're going to use your arrows to move Mr. Blinky. And you'll meet Mr. Blinky in just a hot moment. Okay, so in my calculator here, you can see that Mr. Blinky showed up there blinking in the center of my graph. So notice on the bottom of the calculator here, it's asking me, is it left bound? So that means, is it to the left of where it crosses that x-axis? This is my right, this is my left. So again, those arrows move Mr. Blinky. It is to the left of that intersection because the intersection point is right here. So I'm going to hit enter. Then it asks me if it's right bound. Your calculator might not show up with these dotted lines. That's okay, they don't need them. So right bound, I need to move my little arrow all the way over until it gets to the right side of where that crosses the x-axis. Now remember, we can see clearly from this graph, and we already know what our x-intercept should be. We're just doing this to make sure it works. So I got it to the right, I hit enter, and now it's asking me if you want to guess. And you do want it to guess because its guess is always better than our guess. So you can see at the bottom, it shows up with my 0. My 0 is x equals 8 and y equals 0, just like we got from our table of values. That x-intercept is 8, 0. And that is about the gist of what you want to use for your calculator for this first example here.